days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. It's time to talk about defensive line. Now, the 49ers have some very key free agents along the defensive line, and if they could bring some of these guys back, it would make things easier. However, if they're not able to bring back a DJ Jones, for instance, they might have some room in the rotation. They might actually have some room as a starter, depending on how they view, their big guy that they just drafted, Javon Kinlaw. So, Alex, are there potential guys they should bring back? Or bring in? And as far as it goes for DJ Jones, do you think we're going to be able to bring this guy back after hearing what John Lynch has been talking about the fact that, he earned a lot of money and maybe it's not all, a good sign for the Niners?
It's definitely not a good sign for the Niners. Anyone think that this is a done deal? You gotta think again. You get the double take here on this. DJ Jones is going to make it very difficult. Those are the words out of John Lynch's mouth, and he's not wrong. The season he just put up and the numbers he just put up, and some of the guys that are going to be available. He's not a guy who's in his 30s, going into his early 30s, anywhere in there. This is a guy who's still in those late 20 range and who's still got a lot of time left on the table and can still grow into the best version of himself as a player. If you're the Niners, do you want to keep that around? 100% you do. But a team may price you out of that. A team could possibly do that and prevent you from, re-signing him and be able to re-sign other players as well. It's always an issue in free agency whenever your guys start doing well. And that's why guys going into the last year of their contracts tend to play at a very high level. They have a lot at stake, a lot on the line. And DJ Jones is one of them. Can you bring him back? Maybe. It's looking like, we originally thought that number was going to be around $6.5, $8 million. That may not be the case. It may be closer to 9, 10, more than that maybe.
Yeah, you just don't know. I mean, you got Seattle freeing up cap space. You got Arizona possibly wanting to upgrade at the defensive line position. I've seen a lot of people from Arizona on Twitter that have been posting they want DJ Jones. I think DJ Jones is going to be a very sought-after commodity. So the 49ers might be priced out of bringing him back, especially if they value Laken Tomlinson a little bit more than they value DJ Jones.
Accurate.
You also have the thought process of, if I bring back DJ Jones for $8 to $10 million a year, does that price me out of bringing Arden Key back or price me out of bringing other free agents that can help continue this rotation? Because it's more important to have a very, very good rotation than it is to have, DJ Jones on the team, because you do have Javon Kinlaw. And at some point, he has to reach the potential or you need to move on from him as well. So I think this is going to be an interesting offseason. But the 49ers do have some other options, right, that they can go with on the defensive interior that maybe in case you lose DJ Jones, you could replace him with these guys.
100%. And one of the first ones we got to talk about is Ndamukong Suh. And some people may be going, Suh's old, he's 35, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, but he produces. He consistently executes at a high level, does what he needs to do, has an impact both in the run game and in the pass game. Makes life easier for everybody. And Suh at 35, he made $9 million last year. Suh's ring chasing at this point. If he can find a place that he knows is close, that has a great defensive line that continually every year in and year out for the past 4 seasons has been putting pressure on quarterbacks and getting after it in a big way, he'll take less money to come here, and you can replace and mitigate some of the damage in losing a guy like DJ Jones by having a guy like Ndamukong Suh on this roster, a veteran presence, and who could also help, Javon Kinlaw along the way in his development.
I'm going to say this real slow. Chris Casara.
Oh, okay.
Chris Casara coached him in Ndamukong Suh at Detroit. So there's familiarity there. In fact, he was the one that got him when he was a rookie. So that means Chris Casara had a very, very pivotal role in his development. And Ndamukong Suh is a very beastly player, very rugged. He has an attitude about him. Yeah, he could help you on the interior defensive line. And if you're, losing DJ Jones and you want to replace, have somebody that can make sure that Javon Kinlaw is healthy, because you do have questions whether he can stay healthy or not. And Ndamukong Suh for 1 year coming in, you could probably pay him half of what you were going to have to pay DJ Jones, still be able to bring Arden Key back and, fulfill this defensive line rotation. To me, that makes a lot of sense.
Here's something else for you, Ant. They had done some stuff with his contract as well. The Bucs did. So he is getting $6.8 million already from the Bucs this year. which means he's already got 6.8 just sitting there in the bank. You might be able to offer him a 2-year deal with some options and some money next year, a little bit more money next year, and keep that base number low this year.
Oh, I think you can keep the base number low. The one thing I know about Ndamukong Suh from everything I've gathered watching him throughout the years, if he's making $6.8 million, he would love to make another $6.8 million. I mean, Ndamukong Suh is about his money, and he's getting, kind of older now, so he's going to want to make it, but he might want to be a mercenary too. And coming back and playing for Chris Casara, and then also being able to put up stats, playing in next to Eric Armstead, playing with Nick Bosa, might be something that's very enticing. So I think him coming out, to sunny California and playing for the 49ers is a possibility. I think there's too many things that line up for that, for me to completely ignore. So if DJ Jones is, somebody that prices the 49ers out, Ndamukong Suh might be a nice option to go to. You could have him there. He could start. And if Javon Kinlaw starts playing well, you just have a quicker rotation to keep Ndamukong Suh fresh.
You're not wrong there, Ant. You're not wrong there at all. I really like that a lot, actually. A big fan of Ndamukong Suh in terms of what he could add in this rotation, in this roster. And the Chris Casara connection there makes it likely. Makes it entirely likely, entirely plausible. And I imagine the Niners are definitely going to do their due diligence on that one name in particular. But another guy...
One question for you real quick.
Okay.
Ndamukong Suh, didn't he play in Miami?
Did.
Who was a coach in Miami?
Is it... I feel like it rhymes with Brosernick. I think it was Chris Casara.
It definitely was, yeah.
So you mean to tell me he somehow managed to land in a couple of different stops when Chris Casara was there?
Yeah, it's D. Carey Hyder as well.
So question then, Ant. Are you basically stating that the Ndamukong Suh is a done deal already?
Oh, I'm not saying there's a done deal,
okay.
no.
Oh, you're just saying it's likely.
I'm saying that you can at least think it's a possibility. Yeah. Most people will say, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
You're grasping for things that aren't there, Cutback.
I don't think I'm grasping for anything. I think you connect dots. Anytime it connects dots, it reveals a picture, and maybe that picture is going to go that way.
1 + 1 = 2.
And not in California and Common Core math.
That's accurate. Sometimes that is true.
It could be true, but you got to show your work first.
Got to show your work first. Yeah. So John Lynch, 49ers front office, help us show that work by signing Ndamukong Suh and making it seem like there was definitely some dots there to connect, even though they are visible and everyone can see them. But another option, a guy that you could go with and to replace a DJ, just not necessarily replace him, but supplement what he does. Larry Ogun Joby, around the same age, 27 years old. Cincinnati was with them last year, played a heavy amount of snaps, did some nice things for them there. Cincinnati has enough cap room. They may be able to re-sign him, but there's a lot of names and a lot of things that the Bengals want to do in order to get themselves back to a Super Bowl again. And maybe Larry Ogunjobi is a casualty because of that, and they're not able to re-sign him and bring him back, and the Niners could pounce instead. He made $6.2 million last year.
Yeah, I think Ogunjobi is a good possibility for the 49ers, especially if his market value doesn't go up extensively. You're losing DJ Jones because you don't want to pay $8 million, but you might be willing to pay $6 million to Ogunjobi. I think if he wouldn't have got hurt, it would have been huge for them in the playoffs and in the championship game, but he wasn't able to stay healthy. But he's a guy that moves very good for his size. He's very athletic, kind of the things you see from DJ Jones where he does things and you're like, how does a big man like that move that quickly? It's something that he's good at. He has good versatility. Yeah, I would love to see that signing, but I don't know if he's going to be available at that kind of price range. And once again, you're not going to go break the bank. So I don't know if he's first choice because of that reason. But yeah, if you're losing DJ Jones and Ogunjobi's willing to come in for a cheaper rate, you bring him in because I think that would be a solid, solid signing for the 49ers and would really keep that rotation and defensive line stout.
7 sacks, 16 quarterback hits last season. Did a lot of good things for them there on the interior. He was definitely a problem for opposing quarterbacks and teams in that D-line. I would love it. He did deal with the injury there in the playoffs. Will that affect his value? I don't know.
Probably not.
I don't think so either. I think this is a situation where, as much as I would like it, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a little more difficult. He has continually produced and done great things no matter where he's been on his stops. And you're right, freakish athlete with the size, the 6'4" size, the 305-pound frame, the way he moves, how aggressive he is and physical on the inside. Deceptive strengths, because some guys are thinking, it needs to be 320, 340 to have that kind of power. Got a little bit of everything there. I do like it a lot. We'll see. We'll see what ends up happening there with Larry Ogunjobi. But let's talk about Maurice Hurst, because let's talk about a guy with some freak athleticism, freak talent that just didn't really work out in San Francisco, got hurt. Especially if DJ Jones gets moved on from, Maurice Hurst he's not going to have a big market value. He's just really not. Could the Niners potentially bring this guy back in?
I think they could. I really do. I wonder if he wants to come back. He was left off, the playoff roster. He wasn't active in any of those games, even though he was available. But they continually went with the Contavious Street instead of him. And I know it's a different type of role. Contavious Street was better against the run than Maurice Hurst was.
Absolutely.
But Maurice Hurst is a very talented 3-tech. He would not fill the role that DJ Jones fills per se, but he would be able to be a nice rotation behind Armstead, especially if you decided that Kevin Givens was going to fill in as the nose tackle behind Javon Kinlaw, because that would be a movement as well. Kinlaw's normally a 3-tech, but he'd be playing the nose tackle position for the 49ers because Armstead's more than likely going to stay inside.
Mm-hmm.
So you could potentially do that. I think Maurice Hurst is somebody that's on their radar for the right price. They'd like to bring him back. I think potentially he believes he could have had a season like Arden Key and made a lot of money playing for Chris Casara in this defensive line. So I think he would like that opportunity. I just don't know if he's going to sit back and be like, you know what, they didn't play me. I need to go somewhere else where I can have more opportunity.
He could do that. He very well could. But he also may be, especially if DJ Jones goes somewhere else, he may be sitting there going, well, there is a little more room for me now, potentially in the rotation. But you just brought up an interesting point, and you might as well ask the question. The Niners were willing to go with Contavious Street already over Maurice Hurst. Contavious Street would be available. Would the Niners be more likely, you think, in your eyes, to re-sign a Contavious Street before Maurice Hurst?
If they're losing DJ Jones, maybe. It depends on how they're going to constitute that interior defensive line. Because I think Contavious Street can play the nose tackle position. But do you want him to be the backup behind Javon Kinlaw? I think you would like to get somebody a little bit more dynamic. I mean, yeah, if you could keep that rotation you had last year, where you had Givens and Street out there, with Aminahue and Jordan Willis, I think if you could keep that crew together as a second wave, you feel pretty good. The only thing I would say is I think they would rather have it be a better version than Contavious Street there.
100%.
So if you're looking to improve the defensive line, I think Street is not the way to go, but he could be a low-cost, effective move if you lose out on some of these other guys. Then you bring him back. Well, I think Hurst will have this similar value to Contavious Street depending on how they build this defensive line. If they want to keep him at the 3-tech, they're going to go that way. If they want to bring someone in to play nose tackle, it could be Street. But I think they would like to improve the position.
I agree with you. I think they do want to improve the position, and I think there's a guy that they could maybe improve it with that I think you and I are liking. The more we look at it, the more we take some look-sees at BJ Hill and what he did. He was able to put together a 5.5 sack season, as well as 12 quarterback hits, and starting only 2 football games. This is a rotational piece guy who came in as a rotational piece and was able to do some things for that Cincinnati defensive line. I like that option. I like that there. It's not going to cost the 49ers a bunch of money either to bring this guy back in. He didn't make a whole heck of a lot last year, just $1 million, just a little bit over $1 million. So this is a guy you may be able to get at bargain basement to come in and improve upon the rotation, who's shown some things, improving some things at this level, playing in that type of role already.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy that I'm talking about. If you're moving Javon Kinlaw to the nose tackle position, you slide in BJ Hill right behind him. And, they see how the rotation works for Chris Casara, so they know they're going to get snaps. And you're going to get opportunities. And that's one of the things these players are looking for when they're looking for a new team. So I think he would be somebody that fits really good. He would also help against the run. So when you don't have Javon Kinlaw on the field, you have this guy. And he can do a lot of big things for your football team. So I like that move a lot, depending on what the money's going to be. But I don't think it'd be much more than $3.5 million, which I think you can live with if you're moving off a DJ Jones, for instance. I think that is what the signing comes from, is you moving off DJ because he's just getting too pricey.
I think all of these moves at this point that we're talking about, right, are if DJ is not able to get brought back in.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're kind of
unless you could bring DJ Jones back at a decent cap number and bring in a BJ Hill, then yeah, you would do that, because then you could leave Javon Kinlaw at the 3-tech and let him rotate with Armstead. I know you'd rather have your number 1 pick, or your first round pick be alongside Armstead, but if it's not the best situation for your football team, then you don't do that, and you let him work into a bigger role.
Well, you let him work into a bigger role as you figure out, is Javon Kinlaw the long-term answer here, or is Eric Armstead the long-term answer, and we go a different direction?
I think right now Armstead is the answer.
Correct.
But Kinlaw has to prove that he can consistently stay healthy, and he has to prove that he can pass rush from the 3-tech position like a Armstead can, because he can't right now.
No.
He's got a lot of development to do. He relies so much on the power part of his football game, and it's good, but so far without the lower half being at full strength, it hasn't proven to be great. So right now, I wouldn't say he's playing at a first-round ability. So right now, as a 49ers defense, they have to insulate themselves. Like Javon Kinlaw's never going to be able to reach that full potential. And if he does, it's just a bonus.
100% would just be a bonus and be a huge bonus if he does. And that's what we're all hoping for that at the end of the day. We all want that. As 49ers fans, you should want this guy to figure it out and get himself going there. And we'll see. We'll see if that happens. Jonathan Hankins, another interesting one, gentleman from the Las Vegas Raiders, who had himself a meh season. But Ant wouldn't be the first time the 49ers, if this were to pass, would go after a Raiders gentleman and then turn things around. It wouldn't be the first time that would happen. Look, he went to Oakland in 2018 is when he first got there, Ant, and immediately his numbers took a nosedive. He had 7 sacks in 2014. He put together 5 sacks over 2 seasons with the New York Giants and the Indianapolis Colts, and then since then has had 2.5 since being with the Raiders. Oof, not good.
Yeah, I think that, when it comes to guys in their ability, as far as stats go, I'm not worried about stats because you've seen what can happen with guys who have bad stats for other football teams and come play for Chris Casara.
They end up like Arden Key?
Yeah, or they end up like Harry Hyder. What you're looking at is for a player that fits your system and does the things that you need to do, and that can add to your rotation. So if they feel like this is the guy to go with, then that's what they're going to do. So I don't really worry about stats overall. I just worry about ability and how they play on the field and how Chris Casara would use them. So, if they go for this and they make this type of move, I mean, he's a large individual. Whenever you can put a guy that big that can move the way that he can into your rotation, then yeah, you're excited about it because you do need to be able to stop the run. I mean, this is part of the reason that they went with a Zach Kerr last year. They were looking for a run stopper. Now, Kerr wasn't able to be that guy, and they eventually had to move off of him.
Correct.
But it doesn't mean they're not willing to take that chance and bring in another big, large gentleman.
You are not wrong there, my guy. You are not wrong there at all. And look, I think Jonathan Hankins has all of the tools necessary for Chris Casara to do stuff with. In a shocking development, Ant, Chris Casara doesn't necessarily need you to have a lot of tools. You just need to have the type of motor and the type of certain particular set of skills that he thinks he can do something with. And it's really hard if you're in the 1% of 1% as a defensive lineman, Ant, in the NFL, for him to not do something with them.
Well, these guys are excited about playing for him because he turns you loose. There's less restrictions on what you're able to do. When you're playing for these other teams, a lot of times you have set things you have to do. You have to stay in a certain spot. You're not able to be aggressive and get upfield. You're having to occupy blockers. Now, there are times for that in Chris Casara's defense, but then most of the time they're letting loose and getting after the quarterback, getting after the running back, and creating havoc through penetration. I think that a lot of defensive players want to play in that type of system, and that's why I believe defensive linemen are going to continuously come to the 49ers looking to reestablish their career and reset it. That way they can go out and get another contract somewhere else or even from the 49ers.
Very accurate, and indeed. And Sheldon Richardson is an interesting name as well. A guy who's been with Minnesota, has had some success, has done a lot of great things in his career, especially earlier on, and has been a very solid piece in the league. Hasn't been anyone that blows anything away in terms of numbers or production or how impactful he is. But he is a guy who not only is solid against the run, is aggressive getting after the passer as well, and probably is getting to a point, Ant, where he's been in the league a while, getting to be about 32 years of age, playing for teams that have, won some things or been close and been at least playoff contenders. Hasn't really necessarily gotten that itch in terms of winning the big one and being, a part of consistent, stable championship teams. Maybe he wants to come in on a little bit cheaper deal. Not that he's going to be eating up a lot of money because he only made about $3.5 million last year. But maybe now is a time for him to be like, hey, it's time for me to try and go somewhere where I can contribute in a big way and win. And what better situation than San Francisco?
Yeah, it'd be a little bit of a pivot, right? The 49ers so far have went with young guys, unknown guys that Chris Casara develops, and then they see what they can get out of them. It's low draft picks or undrafted guys that he's been able to develop, like Kevin Givens. So yeah, maybe getting some veterans in that have that ability to be one of those top flight guys, and then just being able to be molded at the end of their career, or just added to a rotation that does have Armstead and Bosa and Ebukam, could be enticing for a lot of these guys. So it is a place where you can possibly get the fountain of youth that is the defensive line and extend your career, or like you said, win a Super Bowl. So I think it's enticing, and these guys have a lot of ability. Sheldon Richardson's a very talented football player. He has good hands. He's very physical. He'll be able to do all the elements you want. He would be probably in a rotation behind Javon Kinlaw, behind Eric Armstead. He'd be playing on the inside, but he could be a nice piece to add, especially into that rotation with a lot of young players. Because really, Armstead is the senior gentleman there. Everyone else is a lot younger. but Armstead and D Ford. So I think that bringing in some guys that are older now that you've established yourself as one of these teams on 1-year deals, while you continually try to bring in young players to to kind of reestablish and reset, is a good move. But yeah, maybe it's a possibility.
It's definitely not a not possibility. But look, again, all of these predicated upon DJ not being around, DJ not being here, and then there's not able to bring this guy back into the fold. But Danny Shelton is a guy that you really like, Ant. This is a guy who isn't going to. I don't think he's going to cost too much. I don't think he's going to be. It's going to end up breaking the bank. Why do you think it would work out well in San Francisco with Danny Shelton?
I just think he fits what they do. I think you put him into the system, and he's going to be able to increase his numbers and get after it. I think he's one of those guys that fits what Chris Casara wants from a defensive lineman. So yeah, I just think it's a natural fit. But we'll see if they're able to bring somebody in like that. But I think this is somebody they'd be interested in bringing in, molding, and then seeing what potential he has overall. But it's all encompassing on DJ Jones being gone. If DJ Jones is there, then you're probably not bringing in Danny Shelton.
No, you might not. You might not be bringing in Danny Shelton, but again, an undrafted free agent, a type of guy who is just not an undrafted free agent. My apologies, everyone. Round 1 pick, 12th overall by the Cleveland Browns, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. There,
yeah.
I saw UFA and thought unrestricted. I thought undrafted free agent. No, unrestricted free agent was the tag on him there. Played with the Lions this past season. Actually ended up, I think he finished with the Giants. Did he not? Yeah, he started with the Lions, finished with the Giants. So been around. He's been around a couple different organizations. 4, I think, in fact, in his career. He's only 28 years old. 28. My goodness gracious. So he's been around though for a little bit, been around a couple teams, but at the end of the day, we'll see what happens. I think it's predicated on DJ, obviously, with him there.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Chris Casara tends to do and seems to do a lot with very little and with guys who have high ceilings and great skill sets. So any risk in the D line that you take, you're going to take it and you're going to invest money in it and you let Chris Casara do his job. That's why you pay him more money than anybody else in the league to do it. So we'll see with Danny Shelton there. Harrison Phillips, another interesting one as well, 26 years old, out of Buffalo with the Bills, a guy who played in a rotation there, wasn't necessarily a starter, but a guy who rotated through with that D-line, more predicated and known for his ability to plug up holes, gaps, and be a run-stopping presence and force in the run game than he is a guy who gets after the quarterback and gets sacks. Has only a handful of them on his resume for his career. Now, that can obviously change. He is a big-bodied dude, not necessarily the most explosive guy in the world, but we've seen Chris Casara do a lot with less, and even with guys who come in with no ceiling, and people don't believe there's anything there. So we'll see. The only reason I bring it up, he made $900,000 last year, made the bare minimum for what he could be making on the last year of his deal there on his rookie contract. So this is a guy who still has some potential. Don't really know what it's going to be. His market value is going to be around $5 million. We'll see if it ends up staying there or if it drops a little bit or goes up higher. But the Niners wouldn't be paying $5 million for him. I think if he didn't feel he can come back to Buffalo, or someone wasn't going to pay him around that $5-6 million range, he may come into a situation like San Francisco, see what Chris Casara could get out of him, and to make $2.5-3 million.
Yeah, it all depends on what the 49ers are going to do strategically, because they moved a lot to speed last year. Even with Arden Key moving to the inside on some downs, it was all about speed. It was all about explosiveness. DJ Jones is one of those guys that splits a double team with his speed. Javon Kinlaw is not known to be super slow. So if they keep that trend, they might not go for some of these bigger bodies. They might stay with some of the smaller guys that are more aggressive. So it's going to be something to watch. If they did, I thought that's why Zach Kerr was interesting last year. If they did go this way, then yeah, they're planning on having a big run stopper in the middle of the defense, because we do know stopping the run is something important. But I felt like they figured out a way to get it done last year, and one of the ways was just having Armstead on the inside. But we'll see what they do. We'll see how they play this thing. But depending on philosophy, he's a possibility.
Correct. And one last name, one more guy. If we're talking about gentlemen with size and some speed and a little bit more explosive, Malik Jackson. Last year, spent some time with the Cleveland Browns. Hasn't really done a whole heck of a lot in terms of numbers the past few seasons. Hasn't necessarily been in great situations either. Philly dealing with what they were dealing with the past couple seasons. Cleveland absolutely falling off a cliff. The Jacksonville Jaguars before that. But this is a guy who's put up some numbers and had some of his best years with Jacksonville and won a Super Bowl already with the Denver Broncos back during that time there. So this is a guy who is definitely seasoned. He's a veteran guy, 31 years old, but I don't think there's a lot out of the tank left. It's a very intriguing prospect, but the question is, right, are the Niners going to stick with what they've been doing, which is getting young guys and developing them, or are they going to start sprinkling in some of these vet guys with the young pieces they already have?
Yeah, I think it depends on what the money is, and what's available. If they're going to have somebody that's available that's younger, that Casara feels he could get, the same sort of potential production from. We don't know. But Malik Jackson was very good for a very long time. So anytime that player is out there, you're going to take a look. You're going to ask some questions. You're going to see, what this guy is still capable of, because adding him to your defensive line, especially if it was in a rotation, you got to feel excited about his ability. But you don't know if he's just fallen off or if it was scheme or whatever. But that's what these coaches have to determine. That's what this, frontline scouting team has to determine is, whether these guys are possibilities. And I think the name alone screams that, hey, I got to kick the tires on this. I got to see where this guy's at, because putting him in a rotation for you, all of a sudden you're feeling a little bit more excited about that second unit coming in for the 49ers.
Accurate, Ant, and that's what all you're trying to do right now is making sure, you secure some of that second unit, you secure some of that depth, making sure that you have the pieces necessary to continue that rotation going, because the rotation is half the reason why you have the success that you have. It's not a knock on Armstead. It's not a knock on Bosa that you get them off the field. It's not a knock on Samson Ebicom that you're getting them off the field. You're keeping them rested so they can be that guy, the guy you want them to be for 17 games and into the playoffs. And all along the way, giving those extra reps and snaps and opportunities to develop and grow to guys like Jordan Willis, guys like Charles Omenihu last year, Samson Ebicom, who went from a guy that we weren't sure early in the season was going to be a 4-down, every type of, go out there, set the edge on the run and get after the pass rushing type of guy towards at the end of the season being one of our better run defensive end stoppers out there on the field. He did an incredible job and grew a lot. You credit Chris Casara, you credit that rotation for allowing these guys to have the legs and the freshness and just the ability to be able to step off the field for a series or two and for the defense not to take a step backwards in the process.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you need, because that way when you get into the end of the football game, these guys are able to get after the quarterback. They're going to be more fresh than that offensive lineman that's continuously having to go against different guys who do different things in these waves. Having a wave of defensive pass rushers that can get after you all the time is so important. And that's why that you see the continual rotation for Chris Casara's defense. He has probably the best rotation of any defensive coach in the NFL. I like how he handles it, and I like the way he develops people. So he's looking to add people to that this year, and he's going to have a similar rotation. They're going to have 9 defensive linemen that are going to be active for every single game. Don't be surprised if the Niners don't keep 10, 11 defensive linemen on their 53-man roster. I think this is just something they're going to be doing because it's been impactful for them. And if those 9 guys in that rotation can continue to produce the way they produced last year, they're going to have opportunities to win a lot of football games.
You aren't wrong there. And Cutback Crew, of any of the names we just talked about, do you think any of those people are going to be one of those 9 going into the 2022 campaign? And if so, leave it down in the comment section below right this minute and right this moment. And after you've done that, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and comment as well also about other free agents, maybe that we didn't name on the D-line that you want to see in San Francisco.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I want to see if people think how much we should pay for DJ Jones. Do you think we should go up into $9-10 million, or are you ready to move on and go with a different route? Maybe bring back Arden Key and then one of these other guys to secure it. Are you confident in Javon Kinlaw? I think those are going to be big questions moving forward. But if you're listening to this on an audio version, please go ahead and give us a rating. Leave us some comments. Let us know how you feel about the show. We really appreciate it. Share it with your friends because we're trying to grow the channel. So thank you so much for listening, and we really appreciate it.
We appreciate the support. We appreciate all the comments. We appreciate having the conversation with you, Cutback Crew and the Faithful. We'll catch you on the next one. And until that time, stay safe.
Remember, the right way
is always the 49ers way.